I had a patient who was doing everything right. His medication was working. He was exercising, sleeping well, even using his planner. Then he got sick for a week. When he came back, he looked at me and he said, "It's all gone." Not the illness, but the routine, the momentum. He couldn't restart any of it. And after treating thousands of people with ADHD, I've seen this same story over and over again. I call it the fall-off effect. It's what happens when one interruption quietly turns into weeks or even months of feeling unable to get back on track. And who am I to start coming up with random names for ADHD phenomena? My name is Dr. Salman Aziz Mirza, triple board certified in adult psychiatry, child and adolescent psychiatry, and addiction medicine. And this video has been delayed for weeks because I was struggling to stabilize myself after a couple weeks of being a bit too productive. And also trying to juggle the World Cup. Goal! Maybe you live this. You finally found a routine that actually works. Your medication is helping. You're getting to the gym. You're sleeping better. And you're using your planner consistently. And for the first time in a long time, you start thinking, maybe I finally figured this out. And then life happens. You get sick. You go on vacation. Work becomes overwhelming. A family emergency pulls you away. And suddenly, the routine is gone. Not because you chose to quit. The interruption just quietly became the new normal. That's the fall-off effect. One interruption becomes one missed day, then one missed week, and then one missed month. Not because you decided to quit, because you never made a decision to come back. That's what makes this so deceptive. Falling off track rarely feels dramatic. It feels temporary. You keep telling yourself, "I'll restart tomorrow," until one day you realize tomorrow was 3 weeks ago. This isn't always a lack of motivation. Periods of overload and burnout can disrupt executive function, emotional regulation, and reward processing, making it genuinely harder to restart. And I've experienced this myself. After exams, after vacations, after almost dying from COVID, after moving, and even after my kids getting sick at daycare. I never consciously decided to stop my routines. I just looked up one day and realized they had quietly disappeared. I've watched the same thing happen with thousands of patients. So if this keeps happening to you, stop calling yourself lazy. This isn't simply a discipline problem. You already know how to build momentum. The problem is that nobody ever taught you how to rebuild it. And that's exactly what we're going to do. So if the interruption is over, why can't we just pick up where we left off? Because something changes while we're away. Most people with ADHD don't consciously demand perfection, but without realizing it, they make perfection the price of restarting. If they can't do the full workout, they don't work out. If they've missed several days in their planner, well, they stop opening it altogether. And if they overspent this month, they avoid looking at the budget. And if they can't follow the diet perfectly, well, that pint of Ben & Jerry's isn't going to eat itself. At that point, the interruption isn't what's keeping them stuck. It's the belief that they have to come back perfectly. And every day they wait, restarting feels like a bigger job. Soon, they begin to believe they have to make up for everything they missed before they're allowed to move forward. But perfectionism doesn't protect consistency. Fear of failure and unrealistically high standards often increase procrastination instead of preventing it. Then comes what I call the Monday myth. You tell yourself you'll restart on Monday, and then next Monday, then next month. The calendar slowly becomes permission to stay stuck. Here's a mistake almost everyone makes. They think they need to catch up before they can move forward. But recovery doesn't work that way. You don't need to catch up. You just need to come back. You don't have to erase the missed days. You don't have to earn your way back. And you don't have to wait until Monday. You take the next step from where you are. Because consistency isn't built by never falling behind, it's built by learning how to return. The longer you stay away, the easier it becomes to believe the problem is you. At first, you miss a workout, or forget your planner, or stop taking your medication consistently. But after a while, the habit isn't what hurts anymore. The story does. You start telling yourself, I'm doing it again. Then, why do I always do this? And eventually, maybe this is just who I am. After enough setbacks, something even more painful can happen. You stop celebrating the good weeks. Because instead of enjoying them, you're waiting for the collapse. Even success begins to feel fragile. The hardest part isn't falling off track. It's losing trust that you'll be able to find your way back. I call this the identity spiral. You miss one task, you feel guilty. The guilt turns into shame. The shame becomes a story. And eventually, that story starts to feel like your identity. But it isn't your identity. It's a story your brain has repeated so many times that it feels true. So how do you break the cycle? By building what I call identity momentum. Every time you come back, you teach your brain something about who you're becoming. Not that you're perfect, that you're someone who returns. That's why the one-day rule matters. Missing one day doesn't define you. Coming back the next day does. ADHD-related shame can turn a small mistake into evidence of personal failure. And once that happens, shame reinforces avoidance instead of helping you recover. I've caught myself doing this too, all the time. I'd hear myself thinking, here we go again. Now I recognize that thought for what it is. Not a fact, just the beginning of the identity spiral. You don't rewrite your identity by thinking differently once. You rewrite it by returning again and again and again until your brain stops expecting the collapse and starts expecting the comeback. So if coming back is the goal, why does it feel so unbelievably hard? I'll sometimes say an ADHD or emotion tends to stay in motion. And there's some real truth in that. Momentum isn't just helpful for the ADHD brain, it's part of how we hold a routine in mind. When the routine stops, you don't just lose the habit, you lose the mental context around the habit. You lose the cues, the timing, the sequence, the sense of what comes next. So restarting isn't difficult because you're lazy, it's difficult because your brain has to rebuild everything it was holding together before. And then something else happens. Your brain begins associating the routine with guilt. And the more guilt you feel, the more you avoid returning. Most people assume that motivation comes first, but with ADHD, it often works the other way around. Action is what creates motivation, not the other way around. And one more thing, rest isn't laziness. Recovery is maintenance. Just like your car eventually needs fuel, your brain needs recovery. So if recovery isn't about forcing yourself harder, what do you actually do? Whenever you fall off track, remember 3 words. Notice, normalize, restart. Notice what happened without immediately judging yourself. Normalize it by remembering that every routine gets interrupted. Then restart with the smallest next step you can take. Not today, not Monday, but now. But what does restart actually look like? That's where the recovery ladder comes in. All right, the recovery ladder. Level 1 is survival. Take your medication, sleep, eat, hydrate, shower, repeat. If that's all you can do today, that's enough. Nothing else counts against you. On to level 2, re-engage. Take a 10-minute walk, open your planner, answer 1 email. The goal isn't productivity, the goal is to show yourself that you're back. Level 3, rebuild. Start putting your systems back together 1 brick at a time. Prepare a few meals, do a workout, plan tomorrow, handle the laundry. You're rebuilding structure, you're not chasing perfection. And level 4, optimize. Now you can pursue the bigger goals. Take on ambitious projects, push yourself, grow. Here's where many people with ADHD get stuck. After a setback, they try to restart at level 4. That's why recovery fails. They're trying to optimize before they've rebuilt that foundation. Recovery usually works better when you reduce the overload and rebuild gradually instead of forcing yourself straight back to peak performance. If there's one thing I hope you remember from this video, it's this. You don't need to become someone who never falls off track. You need to become someone who knows how to come back. Because if you know how to return, one interruption doesn't have the power to erase everything. Every time you come back, you keep one more promise to yourself. Every step back up the ladder is another vote. Not for perfection, for becoming someone who returns. And over time, that's how you rebuild something many people with ADHD lose after years of setback. Trust in yourself. The people who succeed long-term aren't the people who never struggle. They're the people who refuse to let one bad day become one bad month. They understand that consistency isn't perfection. It's returning again and again. Remember, you never needed to catch up. You only needed to come back. Looking over the GST system, we saw that START taught you how to begin. STAY taught you how to stay engaged. SUSTAIN taught you how to keep going. But STABILIZE teaches you the skill that makes all the others possible, coming back. Because perfection isn't what changes a life. Coming back does. If this idea resonated with you, start with the first video in the series. Each lesson builds on the last, and together they form the complete GST framework for managing ADHD. I'll link the full playlist down below. Until next time, be safe and be well.